Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. Right now, as our lives have slowed down, they have also become more stressful as we spend our days at home away from the outside world. We spend every waking moment with the people who share the four walls we call home. There may be more arguments than the norm, but what about when it goes much deeper than an argument? When you feel your safety is at risk? Joining me is Barbara Niess-May, Executive Director for SafeHouse Center. Barbara, I'd like to welcome you to the show. This is your second time on FYI. So right now it is a little bit different. I mean, we are sort of talking about we are trapped at home, and this is not a great situation for people that are living with domestic violence. Can you talk about how this is sort of like a bigger issue now that the stay-at-home order is in place?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you very much for having me on and featuring Safe House. It's really important that we're getting the word out to talk about what's happening for survivors and how this is impacting them, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
What we found when the pandemic, literally within the days after the pandemic was announced, we heard from survivors, those first few days quite a bit, because they were really worried about any orders to stay home and how to stay safe and things like that. And then sadly, our helpline got a little quiet, which made us a little bit nervous. Now, the 911 calls still continue and we're providing help and support. But the reality is that the survivors that we're working with are worried and they're not able to reach out, because part of being able to talk about the abuse or talk about what's happened is having privacy in their home.
How, other than like you obviously were talking about your hotline and stuff, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected how you operate as an organization?
Well, certainly there's a lot that we're doing differently, but we are providing all the same services that we've provided in the past. The primary thing that's different is that we're not face-to-face unless someone is a resident in our shelter. We're doing video counseling, video support groups, over the phone counseling. We're still assisting with getting personal protection order applications put together and signed, but we go through a process for that, because bottom line is we want the survivors that we serve to stay safe. Our shelter is still open and available for those who need safe shelter. We're doing what we can to provide community advocacy for the survivors that we serve. We're doing everything that we can. The challenge is if someone were to call us, we could get them into counseling and to support groups. But when it comes to assistance in finding housing or dealing with things in the community, that it's challenging to reach people right now.
And I think you mentioned people that might be dealing with something at home that is very unpleasant might be at a point right now where they think they have nowhere to turn, because who's going to take them in? You obviously don't want to make your aggressor any more angry if they were to find out you were reaching out to someone. But can you tell me why it is so important to reach out to SafeHouse Center and other organizations like you and not just, think that that's it?
And of course, staying safe is the most important thing. We don't want people to reach out unless, it's a balance. Every survivor knows their situation the best, and we want them to reach out when they can, but we also don't want to overly encourage people to reach out, because that could put them at risk. It's really very challenging. So going back to talking about survivors reaching out for help and support, we don't want them to, it's really a balance, and it's really quite challenging. On the one hand, we want people to reach out. We're there. We have trained staff available 24/7 to listen and process and talk to people. But the end also is that we don't want people to reach out if that's going to be putting them at risk. For example, we have survivors who are calling 911 only to find that because the jail is trying to keep their population down, assailants are being released rather quickly. It's a really challenging time. However, one piece of hope for people is that if friends and family could really educate themselves about domestic violence and sexual assault, we have information on our webpage and on our Facebook page, because sometimes they can be a lifeline, at the very least, to be a buoy in this in this sea of you're going to my website. Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned the website, so I figured I'd show
Yeah, I'm
people what
glad
your
you're doing that.
website,
Thank you. Thank you.
safehousecenter.org.
So anyway, going back to it, we want to be a buoy in this stormy seas, I guess you could say. And it's just something that we want for survivors to be able to get what they need, but it's just a really challenging time for them to be able to get what they need. And I'm really glad you brought up our website, because it is a place to get information for survivors. It's a place of information for family and friends. But if a survivor is worried about the assailant being able to trace her being on this page, you can see up at the top, there's a click this bar to quickly exit. They can click that bar, and it gets erased from their history, and they're immediately pulled out of the website, which is
Wow,
really
that's
helpful.
amazing. That's
Yeah,
a great tool.
we don't
to
have that for our social media
Mhm.
because they can do that, but we can do it for our website. So we encourage people to read how, about safety planning, how to stay safe. The bottom line is we know it's challenging. We know that survivors are really, really struggling with trying to figure out how to stay safe in this environment. And our advice is hang in there, call when you can, safety plan what you can. Eventually, orders will be lifted. Eventually, you'll be able to have that private time to make the plans, to make the phone calls. And I encourage friends and family members, if you suspect something is happening, usually it is.
Mhm.
And we have some tips and advice and support on our webpage. Also, friends and family can call our helpline if they want to just talk through the situation as well.
Well, Barbara, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more from Safe House Center. I'm back with Barbara Niess-May with Safe House Center. So, Barbara, you were just talking before the break about, there are signs of abuse, and I think sometimes people might question them. And I think you probably know a lot of those initial signs, because I think we could be in a situation now where maybe people never felt that they were being abused before, but now that they are sort of trapped in a sense, that it could be happening more often than maybe we've seen in the past.
I'm not sure it's happening more often. I think the situation certainly exacerbates the controlling tactics. And for example, what might be happening is that survivors are feeling like, well, he had some jealous behavior and sometimes he was a jerk, but it's just, I go to work and I try to forget about it. But then when you're faced with it 24/7 and you're having to negotiate a pandemic, and you start having signs like they don't want to buy masks, or they won't allow you to have a mask, or they take your masks away so you can't go places. They may accuse you of having the virus, but you block you from being able to get tested. We had a call a couple of weeks ago where she was convinced it was allergies, and he kept saying, you got the virus, and also would say, but you can't get tested and you're going to infect our, and people are like, how can you even hear and people even hang with that kind of behavior? It's something that survivors have gotten so used to.
Yeah, and it's this weird thing where you wrote an article about it actually, but yeah, the abuser can use the pandemic in their favor to make you think that you aren't in control anymore, and they can control you more. You're sick, or you're gonna get sick. You can't leave the house.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that is just making it so much worse to think and I think in the past, maybe people had somewhere to go when things got really heated at home. Maybe they could go to their parents' house or their friend's house, and it's no one can open their doors for you at the moment. So having a resource like Safe House is imperative at the moment.
Yeah, and the assailant, I mean, and the assailant has nowhere to go. I mean, they may have a pattern that he leaves when things get really bad, and he has nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so it goes both ways. And that's another thing about when they think about if they call the police, they have to think through, all right, if I call 911, the police will come, they'll arrest him. They might charge him, but they may not put him in jail, or at best they would hold him overnight. But where would he go after that?
Mm-hmm.
So they're thinking, one thing about survivors is that they're constantly contingency planning. They're constantly thinking about, what would I do next? What would I do next? And so they might be thinking, okay, well, that might give me time to go to Safe House. But then they might think, well, wait a minute, I could stay at Safe House, but for how long? And how can I find a job? How can I find housing? How would I do any of this? And we encourage survivors, if you have time, to call and talk this through. While these are challenges, they are not 100% barriers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's always times where things are challenging, and we walk with survivors as they try to figure that out. What we offer survivors is that we have the experience of having worked with so many people who have gone through something similar, that we're able to provide some advice and support to talk through how to solve some of these problems. Your life is worth more than this. You can have better. You deserve better. Your children deserve better, and Safe House is there to help.
Speaking of Safe House being there to help, you guys actually need a little bit of help too. You could use donations, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The fundraising outlook for this year is grim. I have to share it. We've heard from the community, and it's been a blessing that the community has really responded to the needs that we have. We have many, 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 many more, and so the way we're doing it, frankly, financial donations are really helpful. But we also have an Amazon wish list, because some people might think, well, I want to donate, and I want to donate things you need, but how do I get them to you? Right now, we're limited to Amazon deliveries and mail deliveries, and we have people there to receive, and we keep our wish list updated on our website. But financial donations are also welcome, because we're having to make a huge shift from a technology standpoint, needing to provide personal protective gear for everybody coming into
Sure.
the building. Thinking through if someone is COVID affected, where they can stay and be safe. I mean, we just have all these different considerations, and so far we're doing really, really well. And also is that's because right now we have some financial resources, but
Mm-hmm.
basically the plans that we've had in the next 6 months for fundraising, other than the men's campaign, are going to be significantly impacted. We do have the men's campaign coming up. We encourage people to look that up on our website. Ira Weintraub and Bill Holmes are going to be co-chairing that, and essentially it's men standing with Safe House and supporting us.
Well, before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that's imperative during this time, or at any time, really? I mean, this is an issue that happens all the time. It's not just
Yeah,
during a pandemic,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah. What I would like to share is that while things are a little bit quieter right now, we do expect that once people have more privacy to talk through what's happening to them, when they have a little bit more freedom to handle things, that we expect a surge. We're hearing from different communities around the country where, because they are able to do something about it, we're hearing from people. Also, we want survivors to know that if something happened during the pandemic, then all of a sudden he just seems nicer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you just have this gut feeling that it could come back if the pandemic came back or any other stressful event came back. Still call Safe House. Calling us doesn't mean that you're ready to leave the situation. It means that you are trying to figure out how for the abuse to stop. Most survivors we talk to, they just want the assailant to stop the abuse.
Mm-hmm.
It's been our experience that they usually don't. But calling our helpline at 995-5444, we can help you walk through any decisions you need to make, what you want to talk about. You can't call too many times, and we're there for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really up to the person what the next step
Yeah.
is, but you're just there to help them step by step with the process of the decisions that they want to make.
And some people think they're alone, and I think some people would be surprised to hear we serve over 5,000 survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence every year right here in Washtenaw County. So
Yeah,
you're
I
not
mean,
alone.
they're definitely not alone. It's a bigger issue than you could even imagine, I think, when you're not,
Yeah,
unless you're looking at the stats of it, really.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Barbara.
Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share what we're doing at Safe House. It means a lot.
For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/CTN. Visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to see all that we have to offer. And remember to like, comment, and share. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time to FYI.